because my thing with culture, and I feel like you have a good one, is when the freshmen come in, you don't have to do anything with them. They fall in line with what the returners are doing, and they pick up the habits of what the returners are doing. And when guys aren't, the returner, you'll have a guy pop by the office, be like, Coach, hey, I'm concerned about this guy. Like, he doesn't seem like he really wants to do things the way we do them.
Welcome to the Jamodi Podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it.
Today we are joined by the head men's basketball coach of Trinity University, Jimmy Smith. Coach Smith is in his 16th season of coaching, 10th as a head coach. He has a career record of 141 wins and 97 losses. Coach Smith is known for reviving programs. He's done it at Shriner, Texas Lutheran, and Millsaps. At Trinity, in his first season, he led the Tigers to the NCAA tournament and defeated the number one team in the first round. It had been 10 years since Trinity was in the NCAA tournament. Coach Smith is a three-time SCAC Coach of the Year. In 2015-16, he was named South Region Coach of the Year. Before we hear from Coach, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at Jamodi Podcast.
What's up, man?
Coach,
how we doing?
What's going on, my friend?
Another day?
Man, I was just thinking about this. How long have we known each other?
Man, at least since 2000.
Yeah, since college, right?
Yeah, I mean, I know high school, I didn't know you. We played you guys in our tournament at Martin that one year.
Nice.
Man, but yeah.
Those were good times.
Yeah. It was fun. It was fun.
It was Greg Davis. Is he the common thread between us?
Yeah, so Grant was my best friend in high school. And so obviously got to know Greg through Grant. And then with Grant going to MCC and me being at UMHB, it was just an easy trip down. So we came up a little bit in the summers and before college and got broken in a little bit. And then, made quite a few trips down during those 2 years.
And then the crazy thing then after is our wives were actually really good friends.
I know.
And connected, but the four of us have actually never gotten together. So what's going on, man?
We got to fix that. I blame them,
Yeah. I mean, it should be, I guess I can't say it should be their job to get us together. But the fact, for them to think that you and I are going to make the plans, that's just not going to happen.
Not happening.
But I do want to thank you so much for giving up your time. And I know this time of year is busy for you, but I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to catch up and excited to be on with you.
Being in the college world and getting to not just coach against great coaches, but you also probably listen to and are all constantly trying to learn. What are some of the best things that you've borrowed lately? Yeah.
So just to give you some context, I mean, we played a really different style this year than I've ever coached. I mean, we really played up tempo in transition, and then we played, nothing but zone, which I've always been a solid man-to-man guy just from high school to college. Like, I never played for anyone that taught zone, and so for me, one of the coolest things that we took, I watched just a bunch of film, all over the place, and to be honest, I don't know where I pulled this one from. And I know a lot of different people do different versions of it, but just what we call a 100-point game. And essentially the way it works is you're encouraging guys to play fast. So, a shot clock is 30 seconds. If we can score with 25 on the clock, you get 25 points. And the game is to 100. And it was just really good for us this year because, 0 points is worse than 10. So just because you get down the court quick doesn't mean you want to take a bad shot.
Yeah.
It really helped us flow out of transition into our half court offense, helped us with shot selection. And then conversely, transition defense. I mean, the other team's obviously trying to push it right back at you to score and get the most points. And it's a great conditioning because guys get tired really quickly. And so we did some different things with that where sometimes we'd make them stay in. Sometimes we'd let them hockey sub, but they can only sub on defense.
Oh, nice.
And just to mix it up. And so it really became something we did every day. We'd usually do some sort of series, best of 7 or whatever. it just helped a lot. And it was
Yeah.
something I'd never done before, but picked it up on a video, and then all of a sudden it's something that's like kind of ingrained in our DNA as what we're going to do in practice almost every day. And so that was probably the thing that stands out the most this year that we borrowed from someone that was really good for us.
You nailed it though. Something pretty interesting. How many coaches are still not, I mean, maybe initially you need to do like a breakdown, something that teaches movement, but then how many drills can we take out of practice by putting something like that in? Because right off the bat, you just nailed it. You're working on your transition game on either side of the floor. You're working on your shot selection. You're also getting conditioning in that game, because I played that game at Faith, and it's awesome how fast they go, and the good peer pressure that comes from your entire team with the shots that they're taking and how much they celebrate, those 20 and 25s. But that's a great game that can have us work on so many things and allow us maybe to free up some more time in our practice plans.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what we're looking for, right? Is things that we can do that encompass a lot of different things instead of just one skill at one time.
Yeah. I love the fact that, how many years in college now have you been coaching?
Whew, that's a great question. I gotta have to count that up real quick. So we got 15. This was year 15. Yeah.
15 years, but you're willing to learn, change, and coach some styles that are in a way that you didn't play that way, and you haven't done it yourself. I think that's pretty incredible. How much did you enjoy the more up-tempo running and gunning style?
I liked it a lot. I mean, I think for me, when you look at, as a coach, what is the hardest thing to teach and get good at defensively? I think it's transition defense. It's really hard. You got to sprint back, you got to talk, you got to find your guy.
So you should live in that space offensively then. Yeah, that makes sense.
You got to be able to close out, and so it's like, all right, well, and we have a team that's pretty versatile. And so we don't have to get it to a point guard to bring the ball up. We have a lot of guys that can start the break and, can make plays in transition with space. And so it fit our personnel pretty well. But, we did it. My first year here was just a COVID year, so we only got 12 games. And so we did it to a degree and had a good amount of success. But then this year was like, all right, well, we got to ramp this up. Like, let's do it quicker. And so it's been a lot of fun, because I think any offense, right, you're trying to find those 8 to 10 points that are easy, where you're not having to just score and execute exactly right to get the shot you need against a set defense. And I just think it gives you a little more opportunity in transition to, score easier. But conversely, man, like, I had to adjust to the swings in the game, because, I mean, we had huge swings where, we're up 20 and then all of a sudden we're tied, or, we're down 15 and then 4 minutes later we're ahead. And, with the way you guys play, you understand that a little bit, but it's not the same as when you're just getting down and sitting in a half court and grinding out possessions. Like a 15-point lead is hard to gain or lose. But in this, the way we're playing, it happens pretty fast.
I love that you said that. I mean, the hardest thing with changing to more of an up-tempo style as a coach is giving up control. Because within a slower paced game, you really can, I heard the term joysticking players. I like that. You really can joystick players and control more in the game. When you go up tempo, it's a little bit of, it's out of my hands to a point, but those big swings can be maddening if you don't lean into those and embrace those as a coach.
Yeah. I mean, our first game this year, we were playing Sul Ross at home, and we're about 5 minutes into the second half. We're down 15. And I mean, again, this is a new style we've never played. So I'm just kind of sitting on the bench like, is this going to work or not?
Do we get out of it? Do we get out of it? Should we get out of it?
Yeah. And luckily we caught like an 18-0 run or something. And, I think they got a little tired, which is what we're banking on. And we were able to stretch it out. But there was definitely some moments where, when you're out of your comfort zone, you're like, is this going to work or not?
And well, I appreciate the fact that you recognize that, but you stuck with it, because I can still remember Wes Watson when him and I at McKinney went from walking the ball up the floor to just never walking and shooting a ton of threes the next year. first game we get down, and he looks at me, and we were pressing too. He looks and he goes, do we need to get out of this? And in my heart, I'm thinking, oh man, we might need to get out of this. But you got to stay the course a little bit. The biggest thing I found with playing fast is spurtability. Like there's this weird confidence, borderline arrogance that comes from the style of play, which is we're never out of this thing. We can always get back in.
For sure. Absolutely.
What defense did you move to? What zone did you move to? And what advantages did you find in that?
Yeah. So it's interesting, just to give you some background. I mean, I've always wanted to have a zone that was a great changeup and something that I felt we could go to and be pretty good at it. But what I've learned is when you're just a man-to-man team, you have to work so hard on that in the fall. And for us, we only get, 3 or 4 weeks with our guys before we start playing games. And so, you're working on all these rotations and how you're going to guard ball screens and all these different things. So you really can never get good at a zone because you're always preparing for the next opponent. How are we going to guard this set? How are we going to guard this guy? All of those things, right?
Yeah.
It never really stops. So you never really get a good amount of time to work on zone. So this year I was just like, hey, we're going to put the zone in first. I'm committed to this. We had played some man the year before. We had a lot of guys back. So we should be able to.
You thought those principles were going to be there, at least those man-to-man principles would be there.
Yeah. And so then we put the zone in, and, I studied a lot of different zones. So I would say it's kind of a morph of a lot of different things that people do. And then things that we've just figured out because, as you go through a season, someone attacks you a single way and you got to figure out, how are we going to cover this? And that was what a lot of this year was just, okay, they're doing this to us. So how are we going to adjust and how are we going to, what is going to be our response to this moving forward? And so, it starts as a 2-3 and then everyone kind of has specific places where they're supposed to be and responsibilities, which is why I like it because you really know whose fault it is when something happens,
nice.
And I think that's different from most zones is it's like, oh, we're in zone. Like, yeah, who was supposed to cover that? It's like, no, you were supposed to be there or you were supposed to be here depending on where the ball went. So, it was fun. I think we got better throughout the year at learning, at making adjustments within the game, and our guys got better at seeing it and coming with suggestions because again, it was something I'd never done before. So you're like, okay, well, they're doing this to us. This is how we're going to adjust or, do something different because you're used to seeing it. But in this, it was not that way. Yeah. So
that's great though, to ask those questions of your players about, you and I did play, but we're not out there with them in that moment. We're seeing from a different angle. And so sometimes asking players, what do you see? What do you feel? And then the ownership that comes with asking those questions, right?
Yeah. I mean, I would say more times than ever this year, I just handed a marker to our guys at halftime or even in a timeout and like, all right, we'll draw what you're talking about so we can all see it, which is something I really had never done before. But you're right. It's pretty cool to see that progression. You get, they get some confidence and some leadership out of it as well. So it's been interesting. I would say kind of the second part of your question, it changed our preparation a lot. Which was nice. I mean, I didn't plan on playing zone the whole year, but we played it well, kind of 40% is the benchmark where you want to hold teams under. And we did that for the year. But just, it changed the prep because, everyone has a lot of man sets and a lot of different things. And, most people just have a handful of zone plays. Yeah. And even if they put one in, they get a lob on you or do something. I mean, it's a one or two off play that they're going to score on you, and you're going to know what it is after that. And then it's just going to kind of come back to the basic stuff that people do, which usually is high post, short corner, or try to dribble gaps or whatever. And so, those are things you're working on a lot. And so it allowed us to work on us a little bit more than I've been able to through the years because we were spending so much time working on scouting and how we're going to guard, all these different man sets that people have. So that was one thing I noticed that I liked because it allowed us to shorten practices a little bit, which I think was important for the guys this year, just holding up physically.
Coach, you nailed it though. I think you hear so many coaches talk about we need you as a coach in your practice plans, you should be focusing more on you than your opponents, becoming better at what you do. But when you run, when you run a ton of sets or you run man and are trying to stop everything that the other team does, you really run out of time, in my opinion, to get better and get good at what you guys do. And I think when you simplify things, and to me, you and I are a lot of aligned now in playing fast up tempo and trying to play against a disorganized transitioning defense is better. And so we have to work on that piece. And then a zone, like you said, 95% of the time is worked on either man-to-man defense and man-to-man offense. So let's play against their 5%, the things that they're just not, they don't spend a lot of time on. I made that shift. Did you play in high school? Was your coach man-to-man only, and in college was he man-to-man only?
Yes, yeah, both. I played for Richie Alfred at Martin, which
I didn't know that. I love Richie.
Yeah, phenomenal coach. And we were really good defensively. I mean, I remember beating Duncanville with Brian Boddicker and all those guys in like a 45-44 game. That's just how we played. It was we were gonna just grind it out. And then Cam DeWeese at UMHB, also really good defensive man-to-man guy. And so that's what I did basically my entire career. So that's what I'm comfortable with.
Was there a piece of, and just be honest here, because that's how I felt. Was there ever a piece of you that was maybe intrigued by going zone? Because playing against zone teams, at times I would get frustrated with my guys. Like, listen, zones are easy to beat.
Yeah.
You get in right spots, you get dangerous, you build your triangles, you try to puncture, you make the ball work. Come on, fellas, what are we doing? And it would just slow us down or take us out of what we like to do. But so I'd see that, but then there's this kind of almost pride in me that I'm a man-to-man guy. We don't do that. Did you ever feel that?
Absolutely. I think that's kind of the competitive and ego piece of the game, right? Is like, I'm going to figure out how to stop you at what you're best at, right? And so that's the chess match. Is we're going to do this to you on this set or this ball screen, and it's just this back and forth of adjustment. That's great. I mean, that's a lovely part of the game, but it's the same. It's just it's different. It's a different game. When you're playing zone. And yeah, some people are really good at it, and they're free and they let it fly, and but then when those shots stop going in, particularly against a team that's trying to get out and run, then you see people start to tighten up. It's like, well, now we gotta force it inside, or we gotta get it here before we shoot it. And so to answer your question, yes, there was definitely the place of like, no, I'm a man-to-man guy, and our teams have been pretty good at man-to-man, but I'm trying, and I think you're doing the same, to develop a style to where we're not easy to play against, we're not easy to prepare for, and then if we can make it to the NCAA tournament, teams aren't going to have seen the way we play very often, and so I think it gives you an advantage in a scenario where you're seeing teams you haven't seen before, or you're playing quick turnaround games, and that's the goal, is like to get there and then play a style that gives you a chance to beat anybody. And so that was the thought process behind it.
Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Shoot 360. The future of basketball has arrived in Dallas-Fort Worth. Shoot 360 combines the latest sports technology with the fundamentals of basketball skill development. The result is a one-of-a-kind video game-like basketball program designed to improve your shooting, dribbling, and passing. Visit shoot360dfw.com to learn more and register for your free 1-hour workout evaluation. Shoot 360, the future of basketball is here. What are some qualities that great leaders possess?
I think nowadays, one thing we talk to our leaders about a lot is just you have to model what you're talking about, because I feel like now more than ever, people are just looking for reasons to bring people down, and so it's like the one time you make that mistake, or the one time you don't do what you're supposed to do, it's like, all right, well, he's full of it, Yeah. And so that's one thing we talk about in our program in general, is like just being yourself, and so we've got some guys that are really good players that they don't need to be leaders, because they have a different way of doing things, and it works for them. but they're not necessarily going to be able to check every box that we want guys to do. And so, that I think that's the biggest thing for me is being real with yourself, and like us being able to have real conversations, player coach, to are you able to do these are the standards that we have set, and it's not a lot, but are you going to be able to hold up your end of the bargain so that when others aren't doing it, then you can speak up, and you're gonna have credibility when you say it, because everyone's seen you do these things for however long that time period is. And so that's the number one thing to me is you have to be able to meet the standard consistently. And that's not to say, I mean, we all fail, right? Coaches, whatever, we're all going to make steps, but I feel like if guys know your intentions and they know your work ethic and they know that you're about the right stuff, then they're going to hear you. And then we all have the guys on the teams that speak up and say things, and you can just kind of look around the huddle and everyone's like, you're saying this, like, we know, because I mean, they're around each other all the time, so they know they know what people are really like. And so I think for us, we've started to try to empower more leaders, but just because you start in that group doesn't mean you stay in the group. You got to hold up your end of the bargain. And so we've had guys that we've had conversations with them kind of stepping away, and I've had guys reach out to me and be like, Coach, I don't think I should be involved in this.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So it seems very simple, but it's really hard to do. It's hard to hold yourself accountable to that, to where you can keep your credibility with the group.
Yeah. Gannon Baker said, you can't coach what you don't possess. And I think there's a part of that too, that is the same with your leaders. They can't lead if they don't possess the qualities, or they don't hold up to the standards that they're asking their teammates to also live by. Have you been able to move a player more into a leadership role, even though he doesn't maybe want it, or doesn't always possess those qualities? I've struggled at times. I see this kid, I see qualities that he has, but I don't know if he really wants it. Have you ever been able to enable and help a kid actually fulfill that role, even if he doesn't see it?
Yeah, I think so. I've been at multiple different programs kind of starting over, and that's always a unique part of that, is trying to figure out who your leaders are going to be when you're taking over, and trying to get buy-in in what it is that you're trying to do. And so oftentimes we've had guys that weren't leaders with the previous staff become, even here. I mean, our leader that, the last year and will be next year, was not that prior. And I think it's confidence and empowering them. A lot of it is, hey, I'm seeing you do this, 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 and this, which is what we need from a leadership standpoint. You're holding up your end of the bargain here, even though you may not be comfortable speaking out right now. Like I'm going to be able to use you as an example for others when we're having conversations of what they should be doing, right? Which that's leadership in itself. Mm. And so what I've seen is, as you kind of give them that confidence that they're doing what they're supposed to do, they start to take more ownership of the group. Like, okay, well, yeah, I am. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and why aren't these other guys doing what they're supposed to be doing? And then just kind of encouraging them to have those conversations. And it might not be with everyone, because everyone doesn't take things the same way, but a lot of it is like, hey, can you talk to John about taking the weight room more seriously? You and John are friends, you hang out all the time. Like, can you facilitate that conversation? Like starting there, and then it just kind of seems to grow. So I don't think you can necessarily force a leader to just, if I'm an introvert, to be the guy that's, speaking at the end of practice every day and telling everyone what to do, right? Yeah. But they can still have those one-off conversations, and can still be a guy that we can point to, like, okay, well, if you're trying to mirror someone, mirror him. So I do think it's I've seen it happen, and it's fun to see the confidence grow in guys as they just kind of step into it and become more comfortable with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Do you remember Terrence Thomas?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So Terrence, our junior year at Baylor, was pretty rough, and him and Dave Bliss just did not get along. And I would just kind of say if there was one player that was in the doghouse the most that season, it'd be him. Well, everything happens that summer. We only have 6 players the next year, and Scott Drew comes in, and Terrence just transforms to the best leader we had, the most consistent captain, all smiles, all energy. And I think you kind of alluded to it. Sometimes you have guys from another program that were feeling a certain way, acting a certain way, but then when they're given opportunity, and when that opportunity meets the right culture, then they can flourish. And I just saw that in Terrence. And it seems like you've had that ability to create that for some players as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a lot of conversation, right? About what it actually looks like. And I think that is probably in most things where there's not an understanding of what it actually is, people are hesitant to take it on. But if it's like, okay, well, these are just a few things that I expect from you if you're going to be considered a leader. Oh, I can do that, and then it's empowering.
Yeah. That you set those expectations for them, but then also, like, I was trying to think of, I've always thought, why was Terrence so miserable at value? I don't think he felt valued by the previous staff. Like, his role didn't matter, that he wasn't contributing to winning or to the team in any way. And a lot of that maybe came from conversations that were had, directly in front of the team sometimes, or maybe even behind closed doors, where then you take a Coach Drew or approach, or like you, here, Terrence, here's the expectations we need from you. Oh, and by the way, you're going to add a lot of value to what we do when you do these things. I mean, I think that's a recipe for empowering players.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
So you mentioned a second ago of how you've started a lot of programs, been a part of a few programs, starting them from maybe they didn't have a lot of success. You're kind of more at ground zero, and then you have a knack for building them up. And I actually think you're known for that. You're known for reviving programs. What is it about your culture that allows that to happen?
Yeah, I think it goes back to a little bit we were talking about before. It's just, being real and setting realistic expectations and then holding the team to that. And I think that's really hard to do because as coaches, we're all, can we be successful if we lose this guy? If one of your more talented guys who's not meeting the standard, what does that look like? If I put this guy on the bench or if I let this guy go from the team, what's that going to do? And I think that it's hard, right? I think that inhibits a lot of people from maybe getting that credibility like we're talking about, to where you get the buy-in. And I think I've got an open door policy. I'm in my office a lot. We're limited in what we can do at times of the year, but encouraging guys to pop in and have conversations and ask questions and get an idea of really where they're at. Because, growing up, we just didn't have that. It was you go to practice, you do what the coach says, you don't ask questions, you don't question anything, and you just come back and do it again, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we did, and it worked, but that's just not where we're at.
How much better could it have been, though?
Right.
That's what we see now.
Right. Like if they would have known, like we're talking about, hey, I'm seeing this, coach. Like, that's what I encourage you guys. Come tell me what you're seeing. Let's have a conversation about ways we can do things better, whether it's practice or game, in-game stuff, defense, offense. We may not do it, but we might, but just having that thought and then feeling like, okay, I can come in and have this conversation because I want to help the team. And coach is actually going to listen to me, and we're going to try it, or we might not, but I just think you get more buy-in, and so I feel like that, my opinion is, it is harder and harder. It gets harder and harder every year to build a team to where, in today's society with social media and all this stuff, it's just a me culture. It's, everything is me. And so it's hard to get a group of guys or girls to come together and move forward towards a team goal that means putting their individual goals secondary. And so that's always been our focus. I think I've definitely been fortunate with every team that I've taken over that, we had some guys in the program that were willing to just buy in to what it is we were trying to do year one. And then from there it just builds, because my thing with culture, and I feel like you have a good one, is when the freshmen come in, you don't have to do anything with them. They fall in line with what the returners are doing, and they pick up the habits of what the returners are doing. And when guys aren't, the returner, you'll have a guy pop by the office, be like, Coach, hey, I'm concerned about this guy. Like, he doesn't seem like he really wants to do things the way we do them. And those are like the most fulfilling moments, not because the guy's not doing it, but just when they recognize on their own that
they're stewards of your culture,
Yeah.
which is that's great when you can create that in your players, man.
So yeah, it's not, we don't have, and there's a lot of good stuff out there. I haven't like developed an acronym or just like a buzzword that is just what we are, but I think just, again, being real and setting attainable expectations and then holding people to those is where we've seen just the most growth.
Man, that's interesting, because I wonder, I've really been wrestling with that idea of acronyms, words on the wall. All of them are great. I don't think there's one word on a wall in America that I would go, why that word? Like, they probably all make sense, and the acronyms are all cool, but then they don't matter at all if your players don't care about them, or if they actually don't feel like it is a part of your program, those standards are upheld, or if they feel like it doesn't contribute to winning. Do you go almost a zero approach with, hey, these are our words for the year, this is what we believe in? Obviously, you just said we don't really have an acronym. Do you kind of not care about all of those things and just the relationship piece? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, my opinion is it changes, right? I think what the thing is, maybe from year to year, is different. So I know a lot of people have core principles and all those things, and I think we have those too. But again, we're just trying to minimize it to where it's, all right, right now it's just do what you're supposed to do. I kind of have the saying of, I don't really want to have to punish you, so don't do anything that's going to get back to me where I've got to have these conversations. And that's pretty overarching, but it's kind of an easy rule. Is like, kids are going to be kids, but don't take it to the point where now you're having to sit in here and we're talking about what you're doing off the court or what you're not doing, on the court to get better. And so that's one of the biggest thing we talk about every year is like, well, here's the rule. Because if it gets back to me, then I'm going to have to do something, and that's on you. But basketball wise, like, I'll give you an example. Year one at Texas Lutheran, we had a really good year. We kind of turned it around. We surprised, I think, even ourselves, and won the league that year. But we had to go on the road for the first weekend of the NCAA tournament. And typically in Texas, someone's going to host just because there's two leagues here, and we're outliers. So they're usually going to bring some teams down in here, or there's going to be 2 or 3 Texas teams in a pod. Like, that's just how it works. So we had an acronym that year. It was BITE. It was like, we want to be the best in Texas every day. It fit. We're the Bulldogs, there was all this synergy.
Yeah, that works.
It worked out, right? But that was just for that year. It was like, the reason we wanted to be the best every day was because we wanted to host. We wanted to get in and be the highest ranked team in state so that we could host if we got in. And we accomplished it, which was great. But that was just that one year, and so I think it varies from year to year what the goal is. And so what is it going to take to get to the next step? And I think that varies depending on your team and where it's at. What
are your thoughts on even this next year, bringing players together and allowing them to truly shape the culture? Almost like, if you've ever read The Gold Standard, about the first year that Coach K took over the Olympic team, and he has all of these great players in the room. And he said, okay, guys, and he pulled I think it was Jason Kidd and Kobe Bryant and LeBron James in early and said, hey, when I say what are some standards that we want to live by, like, you guys make sure you talk. Like he didn't want the room to be silent, so he kind of started with that, and then they go and they just start saying like, "Hey, we want to be on time with everything that we do." But they came up with like a list of 15, and I think Coach K added a couple that he wanted to make sure were on there. But what are your thoughts on, instead of having in a program, this is these 6 words are on our wall, we talk about these 6 words every year, but maybe there's no ownership from this set of players? What do you think about them creating that year to year?
I think it's great. I think it's great. And I think that's one thing I'm trying to move into with them, is just having more open conversation. And it's tough sometimes when you have the whole group, because there's just a lot of opinions and it's hard to really like narrow in on 1 or 2 things. And so that's why we've tried to encompass this leadership group where there's, a guy or 2 from every class who to me have met the standard of work, and to where they have the credibility that we're talking about, and then just letting them have discussion, and then it's like, all right, well, whatever we come up with, you guys are in charge of making sure that this becomes part of what we do. It's been pretty neat to see it happen. I mean, a cool example that's really not probably that big of a deal, but I just found this out was, we had a recruit on campus and met with our strength coach, and what does the basketball in the weight room look like, is what the recruit asked. And he's like, well, the team is just really bought in to doing things the right way. And a cool example is, he wants the weight room to be set up a certain way. He wants all the logos on the racks to be pointed a certain way and all the dumbbells to be, like in order. And he's like, the only team that does it is men's basketball. Like when it's done, they come in and they set it up. And they're the only team. Like we have individuals that will come and do it on their own for their entire team, but like the only team that's doing that is them. And I had no idea, but that's cool because they talk about, we want to do things the right way. We want to, whatever the standard is in each spot, like we want to meet it and exceed it. And so that was an example of like, all right, well, maybe what we're talking about or they're, saying is actually coming through in actions. And right, that's the second piece of everything is I've got really smart kids here. They're very smart. They know what to say. Really good at saying the right stuff. But what's the follow through, on that? I mean, they're gonna choose the right words and they're gonna have like the right things to say on paper, but are we actually doing it? And so those are the fun moments when it's like, all right, we are actually taking some pride in some different things and making sure that we're trying to do things to a standard that's above what we were doing before.
That's given me a lot of stuff to think about, because I think culture is so important. And one of the questions was, how does it drive performance? And I think we've already kind of talked about that, established it a little bit. But as a coach, are we the ones? Obviously, we're a part of the culture. We're helping to set it and shape it, but we can't be the only ones driving it every single day. And it's got to be just like you just said. It's got to be things that they're actually doing, not just a clever acronym that sounds really cool or looks good on a t-shirt.
Right. Absolutely. I think that's the number one thing. Is I say it all the time, and it's getting further and further away. But I used to always be like, I could start on this team because I'm gonna know the sets and I'm gonna play defense. I'm gonna be in the right spots. I'm gonna make open shots. Like, I don't know if I could do that anymore. But,
one possession I could
sure.
start.
If we need a possession to win the game, I can be out there and do it. But it's like we can't play. We can prepare you. We can tell you everything that's going to happen, but like we can't get on the court and do it. And so the guys got to buy in to the style and the expectation and holding each other accountable to what that looks like, because we can only get them so far, and then it's on them to do it. So I think but that's every day. We don't hang out with them in social settings. We don't know all the stuff that's being said, and so you got to have leadership in the group to be like, no, you're not right about that, or hey, if that's how you feel, you should go talk to coach. Not letting things spread and just sit. And that's harder. It's harder for guys to be comfortable to step up in those moments, but it builds. Like as you get buy-in and as guys see what you're doing works and believe in it, I think that stuff just continues to grow.
The Jamodi podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products.
I think I know the answer to this, just especially based on the fact that you've made a major shift in your offensive defensive philosophy this year. But there is a debate or discussion always about, you have the guys, I've probably been one of them, that we have our system, and I don't care who you are, we'll make it work. We'll fit you into our system, and it works anywhere, anytime. Or there's other guys that maybe I envy a little bit that have the ability to change and morph depending on what their players need. Where do you line up in that debate?
Yeah, I'm definitely, for the most of my career, have been the second one. It was like, let's get the best talent we can get, best character guys, and then figure out what's the best style for us to play this season. And it works. I think it works to a point, right? When you're playing a guy's strengths, I think you're obviously giving that team the best chance to win. But I'm moving more towards the other end of it, where I feel like we found a style of play that we like, that we know that is successful. I feel like Trinity is a place that it's very unique with, it's arguably the best academic school in the state, or one of them for sure. And we got a great location. We're in a big city. We have a really nice campus. We have awesome facilities. And so I feel like this is more of a destination type place for kids. And I think that's given us the opportunity to be a little more aggressive in our recruiting and trying to figure out, if you're looking for a high academic school where you're going to be able to compete at a high level, like this is us. And if you're not, if you're just looking for, the Division II or NAIA or whatever, that's going to throw you a partial scholarship, so that you can say I got a scholarship, and that's okay. Like, everyone has their different things that they want. But like, we're not as interested in that anymore. So I just think it gives us more of the ability to go out and recruit, like you're talking about, the guys that we think really fit how we want to play. And so a good example for us is, we played the zone this year. We played fast and transition. So we wanted guys with length, and we wanted guys that have multiple skill sets. Like, they can make threes, they can put the ball on the floor, they can post up if they have a mismatch, those types of things. And so our class this year we got 5 guys, and they're 6'3" to 6'5", and varying levels of what their strengths are within those skill sets, but they all can do it to some degree, And so, are we going to turn away a 5'9" guy that can hoop? No, we're not. Like, we're gonna, we have some on our team that are some of our best players, but I think you can start to look at the skill sets and the things that you're looking for to best suit how you want to play, and we're moving more in that direction.
Do you see an advantage in not only coaching a style that, I think if you ask players, do you want to play fast or slow? 95% of them are going to say fast, even if they don't really know how hard it is and how much work it takes.
Yeah.
They're going to say they want that. So you have that style, but then also the fact that, I can even tell from talking to you that you really enjoy coaching it. Do you think it's an advantage for those two things to be kind of aligned?
I do. I think it is a fun style to play, right? I have a lot of respect, and I've coached the teams where it's like, we just have to grind in the half court, and we got to crush people on the offensive glass, and like, we just have to out tough people. Like, there is a lot of fun in doing that, and a lot of satisfaction. Like, we were just a tougher team today. But you still have to be tough the way we're playing. You still have to rebound the ball. It's maybe toughness is measured a little bit differently, but it's, continuing to play hard when you're tired, because there is no break to where we can get you out, things like that, or continue to play through runs. Like, it's a different type of toughness. And so it's fun to see that piece of it. Like, that's the beauty of the game, right? Is there's so many different ways to have success. And I think that's why it's to me, the greatest game is there's so many different things that people do, and it works. Yeah. It's just like figuring out what that is, right? So, but I can say in recruiting, it's easier to for a kid to come and watch and say, like, I think I really fit in with this style, particularly if you're telling them, like, these are what we're looking for. And this is why we're recruiting you, is because you can do these things. And, you know, with the possessions and all of that and the emphasis on sharing the ball, it just gives more guys opportunities to shine, I would say, where, you know, if you're playing a, you know, 60 possession game versus a 90 possession game, it's 30 less shot attempts, you know, or you're going to have some turnovers, but hopefully not. But it's hard. And so I just, again, in a me society, I think it's easier to build team when it's like, hey, yeah, you know, you may only play 20 minutes a game versus 30 because you're going to be tired, because we're going to be up and down the court and you got to fly around on defense, but you're going to get the same or more opportunities on offense because of the amount of possessions that we're going to have. So
do you find it hard for players truly to buy into that, or do they see it and understand? Because I felt like, I mean, we tried the Grinnell system for a season and a half. When I say that, maybe a hybrid, because I had a Grinnell system coach tell me, you either run the system or you don't run the system. There's no hybrid. So a hybrid, I try to get my guys to understand, you know, time wise it's less, but we're playing a game and a half every night.
Yeah.
Is it hard for them to buy into that?
I think it was initially, but I think as they get tired, and you start to see the decline in output, as they get tired, they start to buy into it. And so again, for me, it was figuring out, you know, what's the best way to sub, you know, what's the optimal time to leave guys out there, and then how do we sub? And, you know, we did individual subbing, we did 5 in, 5 out, we did different things throughout the year, you know, and how long do you keep a guy on the bench? You know, all of those things are things you don't think about when you're playing.
How deep did you go?
I mean, we played a lot of guys. I mean, we went 12 to 15 most nights, depending on the game. We had a crazy thing this year, off topic, but, you know, we had basically our whole team got COVID over Christmas break. And so, you know, it was nuts. 17 coaches and players.
Wow.
All
at one time.
Yeah, all at once.
Wow.
All at once. We had one guy get it, and then if there was a perfect time for it to happen, it was over the break when it did, because we didn't lose. We lost an exhibition game, but we didn't lose any games that count.
Yeah.
But coming out of that, I mean, if you don't do anything for 2.5 weeks, your conditioning is terrible.
That's right.
When you're trying to play
in-season shape is different.
Yeah. So we went 5 in, 5 out for a while, just like 2-minute increments, until the guys could get their wind back. And, you know, it worked pretty well. But is that sustainable? No, it's not the way guys want to play, but you can do it, you know? And so that, going back to answering the question, I think guys saw that what we were doing worked, and that, you know, they were having success. And then we would see when the runs happened, we go back and watch film, and, you know, we're not getting back on defense like we're supposed to. We don't have our hands up. We're not sprinting to the spots when the zone's punctured. We're not pushing in transition like we want to. Okay, well, yeah, that's why we're giving up the run. So we need to get fresh bodies in for us to be able to win and play the way we want to. And so the film was a big part of, I think, getting buy-in, was showing them, like, look at how you look right now. You really wanted me to leave you out there?
That's a good point. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Like, actually show, I think we tell them so many times, but, and when we're using film, we'll show clips of offensively, defensively breakdowns, but and maybe that's a good idea for coaches to think about. How can we use film to show them the why behind why they came out, instead of just, you look tired, like, and because in their head, no, I didn't. And you can show it. That's a good point.
Yeah.
With playing faster, there is sometimes it's easy to have an emphasis on me or on the individual, because numbers go up, you know, more opportunities. And I think going too far down that path, where if within a team it's all only about individuals, we've seen that train wreck before. But I think the opposite is true, where if it's only team, all of you die to yourself every day, we're not going to celebrate or mention anything individually. Like, I think you can maybe miss out on some guys striving to have more individual success, which isn't always bad. What's the balance there, and how have you been able to find it?
Yeah, I think it's sharing the ball is the most important thing. Not just taking a what we would call like a me shot. Like, I'm just deciding in this possession I'm going to shoot, regardless of what happens. I'm doing that. So that when you're playing fast, like we talked about, is you're trusting your guys to make decisions. And so we want to get in the paint, but that doesn't mean you necessarily are going to try to score over the 6'9" guy that's at the rim. You've got the help, so let's drive and kick and go again. But we are pretty specific in when we want to set up. Like the possession, we don't have them moving around like we want them to. Let's quickly flow into our half court offense. And so I think a lot of his individual conversations with players, and also team conversations of like, hey, we're going to get the ball to the guys in spots to be successful that are our best players, And so I think it's kind of clear on most teams who those guys are. And so then I just believe if those guys trust that you're going to give them the opportunities to have that success when the time comes, it makes it a lot easier for them to be like, okay, well, I'm not going to worry about trying to chase shots to get points, because I know that throughout the game, either coach or the guys on the team are going to call things for me to get the ball in areas where I can have success. And so it's definitely part of the team concept, is understanding, what people's strengths are and who can create those advantages. But it is a delicate balance. I think it's because you're fighting parents, you're fighting friends, you're fighting people that aren't in your practices every day.
You're fighting social media.
Right. Yeah. They just come to the games, and, they're going to put the guys that score the most points in the story, and they're going to be the guys with the graphics. And so, it's understanding that, just because you're not the leading scorer doesn't mean you weren't the best player in this game, and celebrating that in the group, and even if they're not getting the outward stuff, it's still celebrated within the team.
Yeah. But also being creative within your team to expand beyond just the leading scorer gets the graphic,
right?
Do more,
Sure.
Open it up, have more opportunities within your team, but then also using the social media vehicle that could be great. So all really good things to think about. Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Ballology. What's your BSA score? The Ballology Skills Assessment is the only verified skills metric endorsed by the NAIA, NJCAA, and a growing number of NCAA coaches to discover and develop the best talent for your team. This 4-minute, 40-shot test can be taken free today on the Ballology mobile app. Elevate your game. Coach, I've taken an hour of your time, but I want to finish up with the speed round, because even though I've known you for 20 plus years, with the speed round, I'll really know who you are.
All right.
You ready?
Yeah.
Favorite ice cream flavor?
Chocolate chip cookie dough.
Oh, yeah. For high school, shot clock or no shot clock?
Shot clock.
It's like 97% shot clock to 3% no. So I don't even know why we're talking about it anymore. Like, everybody wants it. What's the big deal?
Yeah. I mean, what is the argument for not having it?
I've only heard one good one. It's to allow an inferior team to have a strategy that can balance the scales a little bit more to give them a chance, because the bigger, better, faster, more skilled team in a game of more possessions wins most of the time. I don't ever think that holding it for the whole second quarter is good, but maybe having longer offensive possessions where, hey, fellas, like, we're not taking the first, whatever shot scale you use, we're not taking the first one.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's the best thing I've heard.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's interesting. Maybe if you could create a model where you can't just hold the ball. I don't know how you do that, but
a violation of you're not being aggressive. You're not looking to score.
Right, for sure. Turnover.
Texting or talking?
Talking.
Favorite holiday?
Ooh, it's a tough one because it's basketball, but Christmas, still Christmas.
Yeah. One coach said it's July 4th because he doesn't know what Thanksgiving and Christmas feels like.
That's fair. That's definitely fair.
Invisibility or super strength?
Ooh, that's a good one. I'll go invisibility.
If you could travel back in time, what period would you go to?
Ooh, these are some good ones. There's some good ones. Let's just go all the way back. Let's go back to, when the pilgrims were coming over and the whole deal. Let's see how this thing got started.
Yeah, that's cool. Favorite music genre?
I will go 90s hip hop.
That's awesome. Do you still like if you turn your car, you got some 90s hip hop going?
Oh, there's a jamming station here in San Antonio, 107.5. All throwbacks all the time.
Love it.
It's phenomenal. So I'll get on the aux, with the guys every once in a while and play some stuff.
What's the reaction that you get?
Most of them they like. Who doesn't like Mark Morrison, Return of the Mac? Like you gotta. Sometimes they're like, what is this? But I threw out some, we got a bunch of guys from Houston and they're, Houston's the best, blah, blah, blah. So I put on some Paul Wall, Slim Thug, some stuff like that. Like, do you guys know who these people are? And like, no. Like, well, you're not from Houston. You can't represent Houston if you don't know.
They didn't realize how down their coach was.
Right. They don't know who the people's champ is. They can't represent Houston.
Favorite, since we're the same age, favorite childhood TV show?
Saved by the Bell.
Zach Morris, he can pause time.
He can.
Like he's a superhero.
Exactly.
And Kelly Kapowski. But
Absolutely.
anyway.
It wasn't too bad.
Yeah. How many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
On average, I'd say 2.
Nice. That's not too extreme.
Yeah, it varies based on the day.
In season.
Yeah.
Last one, probably the most important. Godfather or Star Wars?
Ooh. I'll go Godfather.
You could go neither if you want to go neither.
I'll go neither then. Yeah.
Okay. What's your favorite kind of movies? What do you like to watch?
I like obviously sports. Those that's kind of cliche, but I could sit and watch the Rocky series just over and over and over again.
Even Rocky 5?
Yeah, it's definitely the worst.
Tommy Gunn.
How could he do that to Rocky? But the ones where Rocky's actually fighting.
Yes.
But yeah, I would say, I'm into a lot of movies. I like Star Wars. I just haven't fully immersed myself in it.
That's fair.
And then Godfather, we were just really young, and so same. Yeah. I just never was like, this is the end all be all. So,
nice. Because of how you play now offensively, have you watched Moneyball? And did you appreciate that a little bit more? Because the analytics side really comes in, shooting more threes, getting to the paint more, eliminating twos with how you play. Yeah,
Moneyball is awesome. It's a great movie, but I feel like the ending is it can only get you to a point, right? Like they weren't ever able to actually win the whole thing. So where's the
balance?
Where's the thing that gets you to the top?
Yeah. We'll see. Well, Coach, this again, knowing you for so long, but then also maybe through Facebook, getting to kind of watch your career grow and change and all the things you've been able to do. This was so much fun, and I love getting to learn more about you as a coach.
No, I appreciate it. Again, I appreciate you having me on, and it's fun to catch up, and we do got to do it more often.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi Podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.